Hey everyone, I'm Armor Gaming. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to a monster analysis update video on Fatid. That's right, I just recently released a video on this monster and already I'm making an update. Normally I don't do updates unless there's something major that changed, and thank you to everyone who let me know in the comment section. There were so many of you that his skills were changed, and they were certainly changed in a major way. I've been going through his new skill set and I'm like, whoa, I really can't express how his new skill set makes him one of the most unique monsters ever to be released in Monster Legends. So without further ado, let's get right into it. His stats haven't changed, they're still the same. His power is 3432. His life is still 45,239, thus making him the monster with the highest life in the whole entire game, and his speed is still 3069, so still a pretty slow monster. The one major thing that did change is his combat role. According to the wiki, he's a tank. I think it's safe to say that that can be updated to support, healer, resurrector, because it's just way to see his new skills. In skills group 1, we now have a skill called Traitor Eater, which used to be Fatid Claw, which did nothing more than just bleed an enemy monster, but now check out what it does. It removes positive status effects and 100% of total life from one ally, and it gives 100% of stamina and 1 extra turn to itself. And this skill now has a 94 stamina cost and a 5 turn cooldown. So this skill is amazing, it's a must-have skill. If you're looking at it at first, you're like, what the heck, Armor? Why is this skill a must-have skill? You kill one of your allies just to give yourself 100% of your stamina back in an extra turn? That's not worth it. It actually is worth it because he actually has a resurrection skill. He actually has 2 resurrection skills. And so let's move on to those skills before we can talk more about why Traitor Eater is so amazing. So the next skill is Vine Worms. Resurrects one ally with 100% life, applies triple damage to an ally. Ally will die after 2 turns, requires cooldown. This has a 43 stamina cost, a 3 turn cooldown, and so you resurrect one of your allies. You give that ally triple damage for the next turn. The downside to this is that that ally will die in 2 turns. And 2 turns, come on, that's plenty of time to remove it with negative effects, or it's plenty of time to win the game, because keep in mind, your monster is coming back with a vengeance. He's coming back with triple damage. And so as you can see, there's an obvious combo using Traitor Eater followed by Vine Worms. You kill your own attacker, you resurrect your attacker with triple damage, and you resurrect immediately thanks to the extra turn from Traitor Eater. How incredible is that? And even though you might be thinking 94 stamina, that's such a high stamina cost, it doesn't matter because when you use Traitor Eater, you recover all of your stamina. So essentially this is 0 stamina if you have 94 or more stamina. Obviously you need at least 94 stamina to be able to use this skill. But again, Traitor Eater must have, because the potential combos we're going to be able to set up are incredible. I mean, just think about it. If anything is wrong with your attacker, let's say your attacker is possessed, right? Let's say your attacker, he has 2 level 10 strength runes, next turn he was about to attack your own team. Why not just kill your attacker? You get rid of his buff, so there's no way he can survive. If he had a shield on, if he had some sort of protection on, you get rid of that. Let's say he had evasion. It gets rid of evasion, you kill your monster, and then you resurrect him with Vine Worms, and now he's back on your side with triple damage. That is so great. And then that works for so many other things. Let's say your attacker was total blinded, let's say he was blinded and dazed. Any negative effect he may have, let's say he was sunburned and he was going to die with DLT damage on the next turn, you can basically just go ahead and get rid of him and bring him back. It's like a reset. It's so darn insane. And that's why Fatid just instantly became one of the most unique, amazing monsters to come into Monster Legends. And by the way, for those of you wondering, the skill in Skills Group 2 before Vine Worms used to be Headworms, and all it did was a single possession. So this got majorly upgraded. And with that said, let's move on to Skills Group 3. Skills Group 3 used to be called Headworm Infestation, which was an AoE possession, and now it's Vine Worms Infestation. So, as you may suspect, it has something to do with resurrection, just like Skills Group 2. And in fact, this resurrects all allies with 50% life, and it applies double damage to all of your allies, and they will also die after 1 turn. And so this skill has a 71 stamina cost and a 4 turn cooldown, but it revives all of your allies. So if 2 of your allies are dead, they come back from the dead, they have double damage, but they're going to die after 1 turn. And so hopefully your head is spinning with all the different possibilities and combos you can pull off. Now the thing about Vine Worms, if you're just comparing the two, Vine Worms and Infestation, I personally think Vine Worms is more useful, and it's probably the skill you're going to be using more often than the other one, because Infestation, I think you're rarely going to be in a position where both of your allies are dead. But then again, because it's a team race monster, because you have the possibility to get him rank 4, rank 3, rank 2, rank 1, and also because he's the tankiest monster in the game, scratch that. He could possibly be alive the longest, and your allies could die, and then you could revive them. And even with the delayed kill, even considering they're going to die in 1 turn, there are so many ways to get rid of that. Maybe one of the monsters that dies can remove negative effects from your whole team, and then they're still going to be alive. And then one of those dead monsters that you revived has a skill that can reset cooldowns, then you're going to be able to do Vine Worms Infestation if they happen to die again. Like, the amount of combos are endless. But just comparing Vine Worms Infestation and the regular Vine Worms, which is a single ally, I really think the Skills Group 2 version is a superior skill. But yeah, anyhow, let's talk more about this monster and why he's so amazing now. So first of all, his trait is Mountain. He's immune to Stun and Freeze, two of the main control skills. And now with the addition of Trait Eater, even if this monster is possessed, he can be quite menacing. Because if I'm understanding this correctly, removes positive status effects and 100% of total life from one ally. If this monster was to get possessed, it would actually drain 100% of total life from one of the enemy monsters. And so even if this monster does get possessed, it might actually work out to your advantage. So if this monster is on defense, you may not want to possess him, because then there is a possibility he's going to be killing one of your own allies instead of one of his own teammates. If I'm understanding the way that skill works correctly, you guys can let me know in the comments below if I'm misunderstanding it. So that's one reason. And then furthermore, if you still choose to run Decomposing Body, which is an extra turn skill, that would mean this monster has 2 extra turn skills which aren't harmful to your own team. So even if he gets possessed, then to an extent it doesn't matter, because there's a high chance he's going to be using a skill that doesn't work against your own team. Especially if the enemy monster has all 3 of their monsters alive. If they have all 3 of their allies alive, then your possessed Fatid won't be able to do Vine Worms or Vine Worms Infestation, because in order to use those skills there needs to be a dead ally to resurrect. And so that essentially means if you use Fatid and the enemy monster has 3 allies alive and they possess your Fatid, well guess what? Your Fatid, when it gets its turn in, it's either going to be using Decomposing Body or it's going to be using Trait Eater. And so essentially the opponent has to be extremely careful when they choose to possess Fatid, and furthermore that he can't be stunned and he can't be frozen, so he's a really great monster. And I'm sorry if this analysis is all over the place, because I'm still very excited about this monster and my head is still going with all the different possibilities in terms of skills and rune sets. So with that being said, let's talk about the must-have skills. I think you should equip all of the new skills. You should equip Trait Eater. You should equip Vein Worms and Vein Worms Infestation. I think that's a definite run those skills, they're incredible. As for the last and final skill, you have 2 main choices. You can run Infected Breath, which does poison and bleeding, and the reason you would want this skill is because, well, poison and bleeding, that's going to reduce the enemy's HP and also reduce their damage output. And not to mention, if you're running Vine Worms Infestation and Vine Worms, those deal no damage. You can't really use those skills unless you have a dead ally. And Trait Eater, also, you can't really use this skill unless you want to kill one of your allies and then resurrect it. So you're kind of limited, and if you want to do something with this monster, you want to have Infected Breath, that way he can apply a DOT to the enemy monsters. And pretty good DOTs at that. Once again, poison and bleeding. Enemy monster will lose HP and their damage output is reduced. But if you don't want to run Infected Breath, you could also run Decomposing Body. And with Decomposing Body, there's some obvious advantages. For example, the double healing and the regeneration, that's going to help your Fatid stay alive, which will help ensure that he can resurrect your allies if they happen to die before him. And of course, as I already mentioned, if your monster was to get possessed, well, there's an extra turn skill he can do on himself, and then that will allow you the freedom to do one of the other skills. And also, of course, by having this double healing regeneration extra turn skill, you're also immune to Total Blind, which is definitely a huge plus for a monster that's already immune to Stun and Freeze. And so it's ultimately going to come down to player preference between these 2 skills, although I will tell you, I'm personally leaning towards Decomposing Body. I just think it's going to come in handy more often than none. Even though with none of your other skills you're going to be able to deal damage, that doesn't in my opinion matter, because he's there to resurrect, he's there to reset your attacker, bring him back from the dead, and then have him kill the enemy. Or you can even resurrect your Deny monster. Heck, you can resurrect both of your teammates if they're dead. So I think even if he doesn't have Infected Breath, I think it's still totally worth it. As for runes on this monster, well, there's so many you can run. Now first of all, I think 3 team speed is still very applicable. If you run 3 team speed on this monster, well then he's going to go after your attacker most likely. And if he goes after your attacker, you can essentially kill off your attacker after he already attacked, bring him back from the dead with triple damage. Now the only thing I don't know is the churn order. How's that going to affect the churn order? Is your attacker going to get the next churn in? Probably not. It'll probably go back to the original churn order, which I guess you can argue is not the most ideal setup if your combo relies on Trait Eater and Vein Worms to attack with the attacker having triple damage. If however you want to make sure your Fatid goes before your attacker, then what you might want to do is give this monster 1 speed rune, and then you can do 2 team speed runes on this monster, and then your attacker can have at least 1 team speed and 2 strength. That way after your main deny monster goes and denies the enemy monster, when it goes to Fatid's turn, he can kill off your attacker, resurrect him with Vine Worms, and if the turn order stays the same, your attacker is now going to have triple damage and no debuffs because you would have killed him off and then resurrected him. And the really cool thing about that combo is that even if the enemy is faster than you, even if the enemy does an AoE freeze, an AoE possession, whatever, an AoE blind, an AoE total blind, it doesn't matter because your Fatid, once again, he's immune to freeze, he's immune to stun, and even total blind doesn't really touch him. So if that were to happen, your attacker, doesn't matter if he got possessed, stunned, frozen, whatever, you would still be able to use Trait Eater to kill off your attacker and bring him back with Vine Worms, and then your attacker is just, he's brand new. So even if you go second in the turn order and the enemy has a way faster deny monster than you, it can still work out to your advantage. That's how incredible this monster is. So yeah, you can definitely do 2 team speed and a speed rune, or 3 team speed, or you can even give this monster a life rune because he has 2 resurrection skills, so you want to make sure he stays alive. And if you give him a life rune, I definitely guarantee you use decomposing body, because it's going to be even harder to kill this monster with a life rune and a speed rune and maybe a team speed. And of course you could also do a life rune and 2 team speed. Now the one thing I will say about giving this monster only team speed or 2 team speed and not a speed rune, an individual speed rune, is that he does have a low base speed. So if the enemy is super strong and they kill your allies but not Fatid, and if you're only running team speed on your Fatid, then you run the risk of the enemy having 2 or 3 or 4 turns before you finally get to go. And with all those turns, they can do so much. Maybe they can drain all of your stamina, maybe they probably won't kill you even with all of those turns, but they could probably do something to hamper your ability to resurrect your allies. So you gotta be careful with that. So maybe having at least 1 speed rune is definitely a good thing for Fatid, but it's not necessarily needed. And actually, going back to what I said about wanting this monster to go before your attacker, let's once again keep in mind he's a team race monster, meaning a lot of players will probably get him at rank 3, which at that point he has a speed of 3487, or if they happen to get him at rank 4, then his base speed is 3627. And so if you do get this monster at rank 4, level 120, with that base speed, you can give him 3 team speed, and he's still going to be going before just about any attacker that has a team speed rune and not an individual speed, so you can still pull it off. And you're essentially free to play around with the runes. You can do 3 team speed, you can do 2 team speed and a life, 2 team speed and a speed. You can do a life, a speed, a team speed, and for those of you thinking this monster might need a stamina rune, I was also considering that option, and to be completely honest, I don't think it's absurd if you want to give this monster stamina. And that's primarily because of Trait Eater, because of this high 94 stamina cost skill. Because this is your main skill, this is your go-to skill to set up a combo to finish off the enemy monsters. And of course your revival skills. But the stamina cost and your revival skills, the 43 to 71, those really don't matter if you can run Trait Eater, because if you do Trait Eater, you get 100% of your stamina back. And so the main reason I think people would want to consider running a stamina rune is to make sure they can reach that 94 stamina threshold. If they can do that, they're going to be solid. And the issue that might arise is that in PvP, in wars, in just Monster Legends combat, there are so many relics out there that can drain your stamina, whether it be randomly or purposefully. For example, the Avenging Energy Staff, after being hit, 20 points of stamina is removed from a random enemy. Oblation Staff, when hitting, removes 24 points of stamina from targets. If you look at the traps, the Oblation Staff removes X amount of stamina from all of the enemies after the target's monster's HP drops below 50%. So there are so many ways to lose stamina. So even if Fatid just recharges and doesn't do any attack, it's still very possible for your stamina to drop below 94. However, I'm also going to say I don't think it's necessarily that much of a problem, primarily because you yourself, your teammates, your monsters, they're also going to have relics that can help recover your monster's stamina if it was to drop below 94. And so I think I'll say instead of running the stamina rune, just go with the life or the speed or the extra team speed, and instead just be careful in the battles, watch out, make sure you go through all of the opponents and make sure you see what relics they have. See if there's any relics that can drain your stamina that will take you below this 94 stamina threshold. Because really, if you don't have 94 stamina to do Trait Eater, what do you have, right? You have Vine Worms, which is a resurrection skill. You have Infestation, which is another resurrection skill. Maybe you're running Decomposing Body, which is 22 stamina, Infected Breath, which is 27. You know what? That's another good reason to run Decomposing. You can, if you have 22 stamina, you can use this and then you can simply recharge. But that's only going to give you 70 stamina. So that's why I'm really concerned about relics. But at the same time, you have your own relics. You have teammates that can help you out. They have relics that can recharge stamina. So I think the majority of players can do without the stamina rune. And if you happen to have the Cane of Atlantis, well then you're luck, because this is an incredible relic where you pretty much don't have to ever worry about stamina on any monster that can hold the Staff Relic, which Fatid can. Fatid can hold the Staff Relic. And if you don't have the Cane of Atlantis and you're concerned about getting your stamina drained, then maybe your best bet would be the Energizer Staff, which when leveled up can give up to 54 points of stamina, so that's something to consider. But overall, I think this monster can do without the stamina rune. And so I gave you guys a lot of potential rune setups. I gave all of you what I think is the best skill set and what's an alternative Infected Breath if you want to. Now let's talk a little more about this monster, some combos, and I want you guys to let me know in the comments below any combos you may have thought of. And so I was thinking about really cool team combinations you can make with Fatid, and I was like, what about the one, the only Rossigon? Rossigon has a skill that resets the cooldown on a monster and also gives that monster an extra turn. And so with Rossigon, you can essentially do Trait Eater on Rossigon, bring it back with Vine Worms, and then once Rossigon is resurrected, you can do the skill that resets the cooldown on Fatid. Therefore, he's going to be able to do Trait Eater yet again. Because keep in mind, after you did Trait Eater, you got all of your stamina back, and then you only wasted 43 to bring back Rossigon. So that means you still have 97 stamina to use. And so then you can do Trait Eater again, and you can repeat that cycle over and over. So Trait Eater Rossigon, Rossigon dies, you get an extra turn, Vine Worms Rossigon, Rossigan is back from the dead. Rossigan, just to show you guys, does charge with resonance, removes all negative status effects and all cooldowns from one ally, gives 1 extra turn to one ally. So then Fatid gets an extra turn. He has 97 stamina, enough to do Trait Eater. He does Trait Eater on Rossigan. Rossigan dies again, does Vine Worms to bring back Rossigan. Rossigan comes back from the dead, does charge with Rossigan on Fatid, and then that chain continues forever and ever and ever until you get bored, until you get tired, until both of your monsters have their ultimate, and then with Fatid you do poison and delayed kill. With Rossigan you do ignition and burning, and then you win with poison and ignition and burning. That's something you can pull off. Or honestly, you can just probably kill off your other monster, your third monster, and then bring them back, and that way you have a full life Rossigan, full stamina Rossigan, and then your other third monster with full life, full stamina. So yeah, that's one nifty little combo you can do, and hopefully that doesn't mean Rossigan somehow gets hit again with the nerf, because that happened last time when there was an infinite chain you can do with Rossigan. But yeah, I think I've talked enough. I'm gonna end it there. I really want to hear from all of you guys. Let me know what you think about this new update. I personally think it is so unique, it is so awesome. Like this whole concept of killing your own ally and then being able to revive that ally with a death sentence but also a buff. I think it's so darn interesting. It's so unique to Monster Legends, and I am so looking forward to future monsters having similar or maybe even more creative ideas like Fatid does. And so I'm going to wish all of you the best of luck on the future team race monster. Hopefully you can get this monster whether he's unranked or whether he's ranked up. And I think it's really great that in the new team race, the new concept for it, every single team, regardless of what bracket you're in, has the chance to get this monster. It's not just going to be the first place team that gets Fatid, it's going to be any team that completes the required minimum number of laps. So that's amazing for a monster this unique. So once again, I want to hear from all of you guys. What do you think about this monster? What do you think about the changes to the skills? And what are some interesting combos, whether for fun or for actual combat, that you can think that you can use with Fatid and his new skill set? Please let me know in the comments below. So looking forward to reading your guys' comments. Thank you all for letting me know that his skill sets were changed. Best of luck to all of you on the team race that starts tomorrow, and I will see you all next time.